So I wanted to make this video last night, but as you can see in the last video, that's not what came through at all. It's about gauging things. And I started the poem Top of the Dome, and it totally just came out differently, and that just tends to happen, especially with it being a freestyle and everything, you know. So to go into that though, to talk about it with you guys, hello collective, it's Kai. Once again, disclaimer, this is all just based on my own experience, okay? So I'm not trying to tell you what to do or what works best for you. I just wanted to share because this concept of gauging things based on your past experiences, not out of fear, but actually out of love for yourself, to express more, to be more yourself, to feel safe, to challenge your comfort zone maybe, but more so, I don't even like to put it like that anymore. It's like not doing what is most familiar to you. And I feel like the aspects of one thing that I noted in my own experience in my own life was being very familiar with people who are quick to judge. And I'm saying this in a sense of like, we're all people, you know, like there's certain things that we don't like and that we do like, but I'm talking about like those who just get very overexcited about judging people so quickly. And it's interesting because I recently had an experience where I was sharing something that has been disgruntling me, that had been a very challenging thing in my life. And I was sharing that like I'm not plugging into it anymore because that dysregulation, that dissonance was so strong. So in other words, when I would share this in past environments with people that I was in connection with, it'd be like, yeah, like, fuck her, you know, like, she's blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, it's not like I'm saying that I hate this person or anything. And hate is a very strong word for me. I don't ever in context use that. And even if I do, I kind of catch myself and I'm like, you know what? I just like don't agree with that. And so I was recognizing like, I had to gauge on how important it is for me to maybe even address these things, you know? So like having a conversation about it, trying to work towards it. And it's interesting because I was talking to my brother about this and I was telling him like, I really learned my lesson when it came to being so quick to be vulnerable with people. And I don't mean this in a sense of like, oh, I don't trust people, so now I'm on guard, I'm being vigilant. It's more of like, I'm allowing the process to unfold naturally. This is the shift from who I was in the past and who I am now. And it's interesting because I used to be like that. I used to be very like, oh, like I just want to be nice to everyone. And, you know, like I'm going to share like whatever I can share about myself. But then I had to learn in many instances where that information that I shared, like even just like very traumatic things that have happened to me were being used against me. And I know that sounds really fucked up, but like, I don't want to speak for anyone else's like perspective on why they did that. You know what I mean? So I noted that and I learned that like sharing what has hurt you isn't so that I ask, it's not, this is once again me trying to speak from my own experience only, is that when I share things that are very depthful, that are very deeply hurting or maybe even just very abusive or something like that, you know? It's not to ask people to like pity me, you know, and to be like so proactive in trying to protect me, you know what I mean? And I feel that that is just, honestly, it's not their place to fucking do that. And unless I ask for help. And so I asked my friends for help for a situation, and it was beautiful because the things that they were like showing me, they're like, yeah, like if this ever happens, we're gonna be like, oh, that's a great idea. How about we do, and then like help me redirect it, because it's like, there are certain conditionings that I too still experience, you know? It's about the unconditioning. It's about allowing the process to happen. And that's what I mean by gauging it, you know? Like, not drastically where you disgruntle your own, like, regulated self, your own, just imagine the dysregulation being like, I don't know if you've ever seen that image of like water on the bottom of something and a speaker plays and it starts to like bounce and stuff, and like, I hope that was a good explanation of that. But I feel that that's kind of what dysregulation can be like, you know? And I was watching this video about the frequency of sound and how in a 3D model, what it looks like when you put two bubbles inside of each other. So a bubble inside of a bubble, and it's like you play the sound and then you start to mix it a little bit, and it just creates this like vortex within it, almost like kind of like the Fibonacci model. And it's I'm sorry if I said that wrong too, but anyways, I feel that that's kind of the interesting aspects of life, you know, like the spiritual sense of like there's cycles constantly happening and we are potentially stuck in the matrix, you know. And there have been many instances where I've awoken to that, especially when it comes to utilizing certain tools, is how I'm going to put it, to tap into that. I do feel that gauging it and having that discernment is so significant, because just because your past self used to do things in a certain way, we can still learn from it. You know, we can still learn from it. It's about having that openness. You know, like when you go to a debate, it's to hear different perspectives, whether it is something that's kind of similar to yours, but the way that they word it might be different, you know? And that can even evoke more evolution within your own thought process, within your own theory even, you know? And I love reading about like philosophy and like quantum physics and stuff, because it is about the connectedness of life. It is about like how things are kind of like coexisting with each other, but it's just this frequency where they're overlapping, but they still have those moments of like, sorry, I'm gonna open the window a little. It was raining a little bit. Oh my god, these two birds are in front of me. Yeah. And so I feel that by having that discernment, you know, and being able to be calm, you know, like I think that that's probably one of the biggest things that have helped me, especially when it comes to still being authentic to how I'm feeling. And I say this being calm in not a sense of like, oh, like I'm peace, I'm zen. No, I mean like literally, oh shit, like I feel super fucking angry right now. Now is the time for me to feel that. Now is the time for me to bring that. I love doing this practice when I'm especially like angry or frustrated, or in other words, my boundaries are being crossed. It's like bringing that energy within my body, throughout my body, all the way to my root, and cleansing it through up to my crown. And that kind of is like energy work too. So if you're interested, I highly recommend looking into that, or just like experimenting with that in your own life. And even with that, you know, like even explaining that it's going to come in different forms in other people. You know, some people like visualizing colors. I like to do that as well. Some people like to do movement, you know, like whether it's going on a walk or going into nature, it's all energy. Okay. Like seriously, that's probably one of my biggest philosophies of life, especially because of the fact that I am spectrosexual, which is about energy, you know. And it's ironic because like sometimes I kind of forget that. I kind of forget that because I'm just so predominantly attracted to masculine entities, and that's just how I am, you know, like I'm just speaking from my own experience. Every spectrosexual person is going to be different, and that's what I love about it, is that that's what I mean by gauging. You know, it's kind of like gauging, like, is this a moment where I could show up for myself in this way that I'm a little bit more familiar with, but application is just going to be slightly altered, you know, because the experience in itself is not going to be the same. It's not the same. Nothing is ever actually repeating itself. There might be certain variables or components that remind you of these past experiences that are, in other words, triggering, right? So whether it is trauma or not, I don't want to speak for you, but it's just kind of one of those things where I recognized recently, like, wow, I've grown and healed so much. And I had a moment in my last video that I just posted where I just kind of got vulnerable with you guys. And I was a little surprised, even looking back and like recalling that. I was like, wow, like I really have grown a lot. I can express these different parts of me, but not get so like immersed where I start to emulate that even as I exist outside of the video. You know what I mean? It's like there's an importance in acknowledging and validating what you are having an emotional experience with, but sometimes it's not like it can't be described, you know. And it's crazy because this is my form of creative expression, as well as like sharing ideas and just being myself, really, you know. And so I find it to be quite important to not only deal with these things on my own, but to show you guys that like especially because I'm an eldest daughter and I'm the middle child too, so I know what it feels like to be a younger sibling but also an older sibling. And I was getting a tarot read and she was like, you don't have to keep it all together. And I don't know, that just really hit. I was like, damn, you're so fucking right. And it helped me kind of like see the humanness in me. And it's interesting because it's like, isn't that a given? And it's not to like shame myself, but it's like at least the future version of me is like, damn, like I'm glad you're realizing that like just because there's certain things that maybe even confuse you or that you're still figuring out or that you like don't know what to do and you're just letting things ride, you know. And like even when it comes to my own internal experiences, it's kind of like that too, you know, where you're just like, I don't know what the fuck is happening. I'm just feeling something very intense and I'm just gonna feel it. And that's kind of where I come from when I say that like gauging things on how important it is for you to present maybe like a stronger reality or reformation, you know, like when you start to recalibrate and redirect your energy, it's important to understand that the acknowledgement of your past is just as significant as proactivity to move towards your future, right? And I'm not saying this in a sense of like, don't allow presence in the now. That is all that really exists, okay? So it's like, that's what I'm saying when I say like, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. This is just what's been working best for me. And I find myself like, even yesterday, I was just so grateful for being in Vegas. And 2 days ago, I wanted to move to Japan. It was serious. It was a serious like thought. And I started to laugh and I was like, wow, like I fucking love being here. I'm just so appreciative of like the environment and just like the nature that's here. It's like, it's interesting because astrocartography wise, like I'm not as attuned to this environment, but I find that even when it comes to things that are, how do you describe that? How measured, how things are deduced from certain components of measurement, is that it's not always going to apply to the most modern day-to-day like environment in the way that I interact with the environment as well. Like I live in Vegas. A lot of people have those stereotypical connotations of the implicit bias that Vegas is about partying and everything like that. And there's definitely a lot of that, you know, like I'm not saying that there isn't, but it's actually to show that, you know, the way that I live here is that I love the parks here. I went to this park yesterday and it was just so beautiful. And it's crazy because there's not a lot of green grass here, but at the parks you'll definitely be able to find some of them have very luscious grass, which is also kind of hard to maintain. So I'm like appreciative, but also like I've chosen not to feel guilty about it. So that's just my own thing, but I found myself to just be so like, just so happy just to sit in that grass for 15 minutes before I went to a yoga class with a friend. And then we went to another park and I was just like, wow, this park is just so cute. And like, I love that we just got here to the end of our walk and I could see the sunset and it was just so fucking beautiful. And I like couldn't even word how grateful I was because I really do care for the new connections that I've been able to build. And it's taught me a lot. I've been learning a lot, especially because of the fact that like I moved around a lot growing up. So I actually never really had a moment where I just fucking relaxed, you know? And I'm like, this is home, you know? I call this home because not only is it my home space that I'm bringing my physical incarnate in, because wherever I go, I bring the home. Okay, so it doesn't matter where I am, but then at the same time to actually have that physical representation of this house to be my home, despite like the differences or whatever comes up, you know, and even like things that I'm struggling with personally, especially when it comes to like my day-to-day. It's interesting because I am just sitting here even now and I'm like, I love how much the clouds are so beautiful. My friend yesterday was like, Vegas has really good sunsets. And I lived by the ocean in California, so Alameda had really good sunsets too, but it's different. It's so different here. And it's crazy because I just can't seem to get used to it. And I also was there in California in a very different period of my life. So I feel like as I've grown older, I've learned to appreciate things, because I don't know if that's like a getting older thing or not, but I think it's just at this point in time in my life, I find myself kind of slowing down and just like relaxing and being at peace, you know? And like I was saying before, like I finally feel that this is beautifully new, and it's being curated through me, and I'm gauging on like how much energy I can give and being a little bit more responsible about that in terms of like respecting myself, really. Because as much as I do respect people and those who are in connection with me and I wish to care for others is to truly care for yourself. And that's my biggest philosophy, is that like the worst that I could ever do to another human being is not knowing how to take care of me. And there's certain things that I've had to really, really see clearly, like especially with having an ED and stuff, it's like it does require like vigilance, you know, like an actual routine so that I can show up for myself. And especially because my moon placement is in my 6th house, which is about like your daily routine and stuff and your health and what you do on a day-to-day basis. I find that it's so interesting but intricately like done through just living your life, just truly living your life. You don't have to do anything to prove something to someone, or like there's nothing about you that necessarily needs to change so that other people can feel more comfortable with your existence. And one of the things that I did bring up in my last video was like that whole concept of being too much, you know? And I find myself like remembering that there were moments in my life where I really felt like that. And it's interesting because it's like it's not even the birds are so cute. It's not even like something that I plug into anymore. Like, period. It's like, if I'm too much for someone, that's valid as fuck. And in other words, peace out. Like, you know, like, and I find that to be funny because even some people that I share, that I do YouTube with, and they're like, oh, like how many subscribers and stuff, and I'm like, this many, and then they're like, damn, like that's like really like I could never do that, you know, like I could never do that and be vulnerable with people and like share it publicly. And I'm like, you know, I feel like that's kind of like what I've released, is this attachment to the perception of me, you know, because I'm constantly shifting. And if I know my own truth, then there's really nothing that other people can say or do that would disgruntle me unless I'm not in the best place, you know? So it's like even this morning I got a text from my cousin about something, and I was just like, oh, that really ticks me off. And then immediately I was like, oh, I'm hungry as fuck right now. Like I hadn't eaten because I like to do my meditation and everything in the morning. So I hadn't eaten. I was like, yeah, no, I need to eat first before I respond to this text, because I'm not gonna like project my hangriness over just this situation that really just blows my mind, you know, some people. And it's interesting because we have our differences, right? And we have things that we might even resonate with, but make it your own, you know, make it your own. Because truly, like, even if there's things that I share with you guys and it's like it resonates with you, right? But with all due respect, like, really see your own experience for what it is, and really gauge on the fact that like you are capable of creating or even just doing things differently or speaking to yourself differently. Like, especially because I do tarot for people and I read astrology and like astrological charts, it's like, it's so important to acknowledge the fact that we are all different. We are all born at different times in different places with different cultural backgrounds, different conditionings, different mindsets, perceptions, what we've taken upon, even in like my own family, you know, it's like I have other siblings and we are all different people. We are all different people. And it's kind of one of those things where, yes, we can connect to it. Yes, we can ask for support, but you can also show up for yourself. And I mean this in a way of like, in the best way possible, the way that works best for you, and that will be there for you no matter what, despite other people's schedules or what they have the space for. And I find that to be such an empowering thing, especially when it comes to like someone who really values solitude. I am an introvert, like more strongly an introvert than an extrovert. And there have been times where people have seen me as like an ambivert or even extroverted. And I'm a Leo rising too, so it's like, I can't really help it. That's the first impression that I give people. And it's interesting because I used to get so frustrated with that, where I'd be like, damn, like, I don't feel like you're seeing me. Clearly, I feel like you're just enjoying the fact that I have a very bright light, and that's annoying as fuck. And I'm a Scorpio sun. So I am really about like vulnerability, truth, and like the deeper core, but not even like the seriousness of it, because I do have a lot of Capricorn placements too. So this is why I read my own natal chart, okay? It's not about other people understanding me. It's about me understanding myself. I believe that to be the true utilization of your natal chart. It's not to just be like, oh, what's your big three? And it's like, oh, you're like this. No, it's that there are different aspects. Let me just say my own opinion, okay? Because it's like, there are literal like degrees. There are aspects that show you the interaction of your different planets. So if something is sextiling or squaring or conjuncting something, like your Venus or your Mars or something, it's like, and in the different houses, it's like, it's not that fucking simple, bro. Like, you say that you know me. You think you know me. You think. Sorry, I just got really passionate there. Goddamn. I've decided to kind of embrace that a little bit more. Like, I don't like to say that I am quite passionate about astrology and tarot and stuff, and like divinatory aspects of life, like the spiritual signs and synchronicities and angel numbers and everything. But I also do read about quantum physics and like philosophy and psychology. So I love experiencing it on my own. I feel like that is an important process of the spiritual journey, is to actually experience it on your own and not share things. But once again, I am a Scorpio, so like, I'm not going to speak for you. But there's just a beautiful balance that I feel that is so important for me to tap into, because even like, I've had conversations with people who are into astrology. I'm like totally going off of what I was gonna fucking talk about in this video, but whatever. I've had conversations with people about astrology, and they're like, oh, what's their natal chart? Like, what's their big three? Like, what's their Venus sign? I'm like, that doesn't determine who they are as a person. It's to negate the like mental, emotional development that we go through by living our own lives. Just because you tap into the astrological aspects of life, it's actually to say that you don't give it as much attention, because we are naturally in tandem with the universe. I've noticed this time and time again. It's like, even the changing tides from the moon going through different cycles, it's like, it's always naturally happening. We don't need to know everything. And I find myself like recalling a certain person, and that's why I'm talking about it like this, because I'm just like, ugh, I just didn't like that. I was like, no, like, please don't ever tell me your natal chart unless I'm doing a reading for you. Like, unless you're like literally commissioning me to read your natal chart, because like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to know. Like, if you tell me your sun sign, cool. Because I've met many people who tell me their sun sign, and I'm like, damn, like, I'm like not the best at guessing people's sun signs. Because the rising sign, the ascendant, is what I witness when I first meet someone, right? I too am a human, okay? So anyways, yada, yada, yada. That's just a little side tangent, but gauging, use your discernment, because things have changed, things have shifted. I don't know what it's been for you, but for me, at least, it has. And it's shown me that I don't need to tap into discussions about things that I don't need to talk about anymore, And I don't mean this in a sense like I'm not open to the conversation. I mean this in a sense like, I've talked about this enough. I've shown myself that my values are secured within my own way of living, and that's all I need. And that's why it's like, I might want to try and have a conversation with people, for example, that have very strong differences, but it doesn't mean that they have the space to. So maybe they're not even consenting to it. That's what I mean. Gauging it so that you are understanding and also respecting your own timeline. And time is just a construct. Time is just a fucking construct. We are all on our own paths respectfully, and it's no one else's place. It's no one else's fucking place to say where you should be or whatever the fuck. Like, especially in this modern age, like, bro. Gonde. Which just means boomer in Korean. But whatever. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for allowing me to speak in the presence to do so. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being alive, truly. And I send you guys so much love, so much support on your own spiritual journey. Bye, collective.